Good afternoon. Welcome to our Orcharhino webinar. My name is Fabrice Brimioulle. I'm an IT consultant with ATEX. In normal day life, I work with Orcharhino and with Puppet, and today I'm going to show you how to do patch and release management with Orcharhino. First of all, I want to tell something about us, about ourselves. So what do we do at ATEX? So our main goal is to make life easier in data centers. So this basically means automation. Central to that, of course, is deployment and lifecycle management of virtual machines. But we don't only do that. We also support customers in running their container infrastructures, for example, Apache Kafka, SUSE Cars, Docker, Red Hat OpenShift, Rancher, or also Kubernetes. But we also assist customers in running configuration management tools as a general, mainly Puppet, Ansible, and SaltStack. But today our main point will be Orcharhino. And the first question, of course, which arises is, why do we need to automate at all? So basically, everybody knows that it's required some effort to manually install several servers. So if you have to install a couple of servers, this is a task which can take some time. Automation speeds up deployment a lot. It is a very repetitive task, so you have to do the same steps over and over again, and sometimes you might do tiny mistakes. So automation doesn't only speed up deployments, but it also increases stability. And in addition to that, you achieve reproducibility because every step which has to be performed is hard-coded and will be repeated in the same way. With automation, you can also orchestrate the services. So when your server has been deployed, you can just configure everything that all servers are running as you require them. So it means then everything has run through, your server is ready to be used. Last but not least, automation enables you to do to obtain self-service. So if you have to order a service different department via ticket or similar, it can take hours, maybe days, until the service delivered and it is ready for you. With automation, you can do everything by yourself. So in general, it's just a question of a couple of minutes until your server is available. So we in ATEX support the deployment of all Linux enterprise operating system, including Debian and Ubuntu, but also the deployment of Windows servers. We have a consultant department which basically installs Orcharhino at customers which ordered them. We have an engineering department which develops Orcharhino, so we develop new features. We include bug fixes, backport bug fixes from upstream. We have a support department, so as an enterprise solution, we have also a support department, as I said. So the basic support is just ticket-based, so if there's a problem, the support will have a look at it and fix it for you. The more sophisticated ones even go to that the support can take over the complete running of Orcharhino infrastructure. So with Orcharhino, we support also config management, the same as I mentioned before, Puppet, Ansible, and SaltStack. We are able to deploy virtual machines on several hypervisors, mainly VMware, KVM, Proxmox, but also other ones. Cloud deployment is supported using Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, and the Google platform. So the basic idea of Orcharhino is to map the complete lifecycle of a server. This starts with deployment, continues with configuration management, and also includes release management. So let's start with deployment of our server. There are several ways to deploy a server. The most basic one is the so-called image-based deployment. In cloud-based infrastructure, it's the only possible way. In this case, we have a template from which a new virtual machine is cloned. Then we need to connect to our cloned VM, either via user data template, this is a cloud-based approach, or via finished template. In this case, we connect via SSH. Then the commands and the templates are run. And in the end, we get a new host with operating system and base configuration. If we want to deploy a completely new machine, this might be a virtual machine or also a bare metal machine, there are two ways. The first approach is a network-based approach, which works if we have a DHCP. Then the server comes online, gets the network information by the DHCP. If we don't have a DHCP, we still can deploy with static IP addresses. In this case, we need to apply the bootdisk plugin. So we attach a bootdisk ISO to our server. the server boots from its ISO file, which contains the network information which is necessary, and then the server comes online. Once the server is online, the provisioning templates are run. In case of Red Hat servers, this is a Kickstart template. In case of Debian Ubuntu, it's a pre-seed. And in case of SUSE, it's an AutoYAS template. And once all the commands have run through, we again have a new host of operating system and base configuration. In case with a bare metal machine, there's a third approach we can make use of. This is using the so-called discovery plugin. So if we have several bare metal machines in our data centers, it would be quite nasty if we have to go to our data center, switch on one host, go back to the office, and then configure it with orcharhino. For that, we have the discovery plugin. So it's an ISO file which is attached to servers which show up in the configured network. So this means we can go to our data center, we can switch on all the bare metal machines we want to discover. Once we go back to orcharhino, we will see all the metal machines which have been configured to do that will show up in a list discovered hosts and can from there be deployed as a normal service like before. We can even automate by given parameters that the deployment is triggered automatically. So as I said, we support deployment with VMware, Overt, Proxmox, KVM, and for the cloud, the Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft Azure, and Amazon Web Services. The next step we are looking now at is release management. This is one of the central issues of today. To do release management, we are able to synchronize our repositories on orcharhino. This means we can create a repository on orcharhino mirroring the upstream mirrors. And we are synchronized there, and from there they can be attached to our servers. In addition, we are ingesting security errata information for our templates. Normally, errata are only available for enterprise Linux systems, so this means Red Hat, Oracle, and SLES. For those of you who are not familiar with the concept of an erratum is basically like a package insert of a medicament. It tells you if a package is affected by a CVE, by a bug fix, or by an enhancement. So the erratum tells you what package is affected in what version, and to what version do we need to upgrade the package to close the issue. So for our customers, we are also able to provide errata information for CentOS 7. The Debian Ubuntu world in principle did not even know the concept of an erratum. We therefore created a so-called errata parser, parsing all the security repositories for Debian Ubuntu, and are in this way able to also provide errata information for Debian and Ubuntu. So as I said, we could now basically also directly attach the synchronized repositories on orcharhino. The thing is, if I deploy today a server, and in a month, in a week, or in a year from now, I need the same server with exactly the same package as today. I need to have some sort of version control. This can be done with the content views. Content views represent frozen package states. So I can create now a content view, and I can assign certain repositories. Once I've done that, I can click on Publish Content View. And once I've done that, a new version will be published. And all the package states which have been published today are frozen to the state of now. So if I attach this content view to a server, and 1 year from now, the server will obtain exactly the package versions which have been frozen today. Once we have done release management, we can do now our configuration. The first configuration has already been run through when the server has been deployed by running the commands which are the templates. When the server comes online, we can now apply our config management tools. As I said, we support 3 tools which follow slightly different philosophies. The first one is Ansible. Ansible is uses more an approach of fire and forget. So in general, after 5 minutes after the server comes online, the configuration which is configured via Ansible will be pushed to our servers, and our servers will be configured. Puppet follows a slightly different approach. Puppet follows the approach of a server client system. This means there is a Puppet master where all the configurations of our clients are stored. And on the clients which have been configured, there is a Puppet agent running, which in regular distances asks at the master what the configuration is. So this means basically every half hour, it checks the configuration. If the configuration on our client is correct, Puppet is happy and does nothing. In case it differs, it will be corrected and changed until it matches the configuration which has been stored on our Puppet master. So the default setup is that Orcharhino is a Puppet master, but this is not necessary. We can also use an external Puppet master and just tell Orcharhino or tell the Puppet master to forward the report to Orcharhino. The third approach is SaltStack. This is a sort of a hybrid between Ansible and Puppet. It can be used in the same way as Ansible, pushing the configuration via SSH, but it also can be used as a client server system, running a salt master, and on the client running the salt minion. With our configuration management tools, we can also configure OpenSCAP. So OpenSCAP is a tool where we can define policies for our servers and check if they follow this policy or if they're incompliant. Then in regular distance, we get OpenSCAP reports telling if it's incompliant or not. And if there are incompliances, it tells us what exactly is wrong and has to be fixed to make our server compliant again. The last approach we have here are so-called job templates, which can be pushed to our servers either via remote execution, this means SSH, or via Ansible. So we can store completely scripts on Orcharhino and just push them to be applied on our managed hosts. And then everything will be configured. So now we can have a look at the whole complete package Orcharhino that we are providing. So let's have a look where Orcharhino comes from. Originally, it is based on an open source project called the Foreman, using the Cartello plugin to do the content management. We support the usage of Ansible, SaltStack, and Puppet. As I said, we develop Orcharhino ourselves. So we take the Foreman, we apply bug fixes, we develop new plugins. For example, we developed the snapshot plugin for Proxmox and for VMware, where snapshots can be taken directly in Orcharhino. We also developed the SCC Manager plugin, which allows to synchronize SLES repository as well if you have a SUSE account. So we provide errata information for CentOS 7, for Ubuntu, and for Debian, which are not in general available. With Orcharhino also, we provide, of course, the templates and the clients which are necessary to deploy our servers and to register the servers to Orcharhino itself. Mainly, we also developed the subscription managers for Oracle and for SUSE Linux, as well as for Debian and for Ubuntu. As I said, we also offer support, starting with ticket-based problems, which are solved then by the support. We can take also over the complete running of the infrastructure. And last but not least, we have a consulting department, which basically also installs Orcharhino for our customers. It's always good to have a consultant around when Orcharhino is installed, because there is a huge amount of plugins, for example, available. And it's good to have someone who is aware of all plugins which are available to tell which ones are useful and should be applied and which ones are not as applicable in the use case. So from the consulting, we also provide a training. So every customer who orders Orcharhino can also order a training. So we teach the administrators how to use Orcharhino properly and to get the best possible user experience. So this whole package then defines Orcharhino as a whole. And if you want to have a look at what Orcharhino is able to do already right now, here there are two links, online links, which you can have a look. There's a documentation at https://docs.orcharhino, and information and registration for demos you can have directly at https://orcharhino.com. In case you have some questions, you can just ask a question in the chat. In the meanwhile, I will continue with the live demonstration of how to do patch and release management with Orcharhino. So I will share the screen now. So now what you can see here is our demo system. You can see now all the servers which are running right now. You see we support a lot of different Linux systems, starting with Alma Linux, CentOS, Debian, Oracle Linux, SLES, Ubuntu, and also Windows service. So let me show you how to quickly deploy just one server. As I said, you can deploy a server just with 3 clicks. So I will just demonstrate that before I go into more detail. So we click here on Create Host. When we can name the host, let's call it Webinar CentOS 7. We pick our host group, so we want to have a CentOS, so we just do CentOS 7. Now all the configuration will be pre-filled. I will explain in more detail a bit later what this all means. I click on Submit, and our host is going to be built. We can now have a short look what happens on the host itself. We have to wait a second until the connection is done. And we see here the deployment has started. So in the meanwhile, let's have a look what we can see about our host. So in this host, we cannot see that much at the moment because it has not been deployed yet. We see the status is still is okay, but the build state is now in pending installation. Let's have a look at a different server which already has been provided to show you what we can see right when the host is online. So let's get back to our main list. We look at our server here. So you see the first we see here is our main status. You can see that we have an error status, which is done on purpose. The main status is just a summary of all the status we have down here. And we can see here the error status comes from that we have a security errata installable for our server. But let's just go from up to down to see what we can see. So we see the server is compliant, it has been built. The last configuration one said we had no changes. The last execution one was successful. We see with security errata. We'll have more detail into that in a few minutes. We see it has been fully subscribed, and we see there is no reason to that the server needs to be rebuilt. So let's have a look what is configured on this host. For that, we go to Content. So we can now see here the overview. For our server, we have 11 security errata available, 20 bug fixes, and 2 enhancements. We see we have several lifecycle environments available on orcharhino. The basic idea of lifecycles is the following, because many companies have several lifecycles. The simplest ones are development, testing, and production. So this means if there is a development department, we have a development environment where new packages are developed. When the developer then say, everything is okay, we have developed, they can be tested now, we can just take a content view version which is assigned to development and promote this one to testing. Then the complete content view of the packages will be shifted as a whole to the test service. In this way, we avoid issues by dependency errors and so on, because the complete environment will be shifted as a whole. The same thing applies to production. So if all the tests are done and things are stable to be rolled out on production, we can just promote the content views to production, and then production servers would obtain the content view which is assigned to production. We will also see that a bit later. So we see now, this is here a test server. We see the subscriptions which have been applied. So this server obtains CentOS 7 repositories, the CentOS client, which is necessary to communicate with orcharhino, Puppet, SaltStack, and EPL. So let's now have a look at our errata information. So we see here, these are all the errata which are open for our service. We can have a look at the, let's not pick it kernel update. Let's look at this one, the OpenVM tools enhancement. So we can now, here we see the date when the issue has been published. We can have here a look. We have a short description. Okay, this is very short. Other descriptions are a bit longer. We see here what versions of packages need to be upgraded so that the issue is being closed. So in order to apply this errata, we refresh the site to get the proper view again. We just click On the errata, we want to apply. So let's pick those two, the OpenVM tools and the glib bug fix. We click on apply selected, and then the errata will be applied via remote execution. If we now click here on the server name, we can see what actually happens on the shell of our server. So we see the yum action. We see we have here an upgrade of these packages here. We wait a second until the yum action has run through, updating the package. Package has been updated. Now information is being back uploaded to orcharhino to see so that the new package state is available. Has run through. We have an access state of 0, which is good. And we see here everything was successful. Now we can go back to our errata side, refresh the site, and we see that the errata are no longer listed. So we can also have a look at the packages which are available or already installed on our server. So we see here the complete list of installed packages. So let's, for example, look if we have a version of htop installed. So apparently not. So let's install htop to see how it works. So we just go here to actions. We have here now several package actions we can apply. We can do a package install, update, remove, or group install and group remove as well. So let's just install htop. We click on perform. And then via remote execution, htop will be installed on our server. So again, we can have a look on the yum action. Installation has run through. Now the tracer profile is being uploaded again. Everything went fine. We can go back to our list here. We look at, wait, here it was, of installed packages. We look for htop, and we see now htop is being listed. In addition, now we can look at applicable. Applicable shows us the list of all packages where a newer version is available. So we can just have a look here. These are all the packages which can be upgraded. We can just click on upgrade all packages to just run a general update for all packages. We just can pick one, for example, and upgrade it also via remote execution as well. So now let's have a look at our content. As I managed, we are synchronizing all the different packages. So where do the servers we attached to orcharhino obtain their packages from? So if we look here at content, so we see that was successful. We have here, first of all, products. A product is a sort of summary, a placeholder for several repositories. In general, it's good to cluster repositories which are connected to each other in one repository. For example, let's have a look at CentOS 7. If we click here on CentOS 7, we'll see we have here 3 repositories: extras, OS, and updates. If we now click on our OS update, we can see we have here the upstream URL from which has been synchronized. We give the yum data, metadata information, and this basically is already enough. Once this has been done, we can just click on synchronize, and the packages will be downloaded and stored on orcharhino. We can do that not only for yum repositories, but also for Debian repositories. So let's have a short look on Debian repositories as well. So let's scroll down once the site has reloaded. Let's try to refresh it. Okay, there it is. Let's look at Debian 11. So we see here, we have, for example, our bullseye main. This is the Debian 11 main repository. So we see here again, we give our upstream URL. We define release, which is being used Bullseye for Debian 11, the components main and architecture AMD 64. And with that, we are able to synchronize Debian repositories as well. It's always good to have the latest states of packages available on your Orcharhino. Therefore, we can create so-called sync plans. So let's have a look at the sync plans. The sync plan defines the time when repositories are automatically synchronized. You can do that, for example, every day or every week if you don't need your updates that often, or if you need a specific schedule, you can also align a cron line. For example, we have now here our sync plan, which is being run nightly. So we see here has been defined that it runs every day at 0 o'clock. And we have here the products which have been assigned to the sync plan. Now, if we have a look at all our products over here, we'll see all the different sync plans which are assigned to our products. And you see it's good to spread your sync plan a bit, because if you are synchronizing all your repositories at once, you might run into an I/O problem either with your storage itself or with your connection to upstream. So as I said, it's good to also have so-called frozen states. So therefore, we have so-called content views. We see them here in content and content views. Wait a second, it has loaded. So let's have a look at the CentOS 7 content view. In this case now, we assigned all the repositories which are also available for CentOS itself. We go to YAM content, we go to repositories, and we have here a list of the repositories which have been attached. If you would like to attach further repositories, you can click on Add. And then you have a list of many different repositories which you can include further to the ones which are already included. So we can have a look at our version history. We see here the last version has been published on August 11th, before it has been on June 3rd. If we want to publish a new version with a package states as have been today, we just click on Publish New Version. We click on Save. And then we will obtain a new version, which will be available to all the servers which live in the environment library. And sometimes it might make sense to have several content views in order to update and to manage different products independent of each other. For example, if you want to update your Puppet environment and your operating system independent of each other, you would create, for example, as we have it here, a CentOS 7 product and a Puppet for Enterprise Linux 7 product separately. Where is it? Here it is. So if we click here, you see in this way, we only have attached one repository. The slight problem with that is that we only can attach one content view at once to our servers. So if we want to attach several content views at once to our servers, we will have to create a so-called composite content view. So let's have a look at our composite content view. In this case, the composite CentOS 7. So we see again, we have here several versions, and we also see that in this case, we have assigned several environments further than library. I will explain it to you in about 1 minute, what this exactly means. So now we can see what content views have been attached here. So we see the composite content view contains CentOS 7 itself, the Orcharhino client, EPEL, Puppet, as I mentioned before, and SaltStack as well. And here we can define which version of this content view is to be used. We can configure it that it always uses the latest version, but if we want to have, for some reason, a slightly older version, we can also pick another one. So as I said, we have now here different environments. It's important to define the environment for the content views which are to be applied to our servers. In our case, we are only applying composite content views to our servers. Therefore, the simple ones do not need to be assigned to certain life cycles. In this case, we see if we have a CentOS 7 production server, it will be attached to the version of a composite CentOS 7 content view, which is assigned to production. So this means this server sees the version 6.0. A test server would obtain the testing version, which is the version 7.0, and the development server would see all the packages which have been published in the version 8.0. So if I now say all the packages in 7.0 which have been tested, they are stable, they are good, they can be used for a production server. I would just click here on promote. I see here now my lifecycle path. I click on production and I click on promote version. Now the complete version 7.0 will be moved to production. So this means all the production servers, once this promotion is done, will no longer be connected to version 6.0, but to version 7.0. So let's have now a look at the special cases we have. So I showed you how to create a standard, a normal repository. In case of Red Hat and of SLES, it's slightly different because for these operating systems, you need a subscription. So in case of Red Hat, we just go here to content and we look here at subscription. To be able to synchronize Red Hat repositories, we will have to obtain a so-called Red Hat manifest at the Red Hat web page. We have to download it, and then we go here to manage manifest. We can choose the file and upload it to orcharhino. This is something which takes about 1 or 2 minutes. And once this has been done, we can have a look here at content. We look at Red Hat repositories. And then here, we will have a list of all Red Hat subscriptions which are available for us. We can pick them. And once we pick them, they will show up here as enabled and will be automatically created in our product list. All we have to do then is just to synchronize them and to assign a sync plan. So let's have a short look on our Red Hat repositories, and we can see here, we have now here all the Red Hat repositories which we have enabled. In case of SUSE, we provide the so-called SEC Manager plugin, the SUSE Customer Center. So we look here to SUSE subscriptions. So we can click here on Add SEC Account. We give a name, how it's going to be called in orcharhino. We provide the login credentials, login name and password, and then we can test connection, and on Submit, we just create the account itself. So basically this then looks like this here. Once we have done that, we can click here on the right arrow. We click on Synchronize. orcharhino will connect to the customer center and then synchronize and figure out what products are available according to your subscription. So if we now click on Select Products, we will obtain a list of all the products which are available for us. So you see here, these are all the products which are provided by SUSE according to your subscription. So if we want to create a new repository which is not already in orcharhino, we can just pick one here. So we see here, for example, SUSE Linux Enterprise Desktop for 15SP1. So we click here, we check the box, we scroll down, we click on Submit, and now the product is going to be created. So let's have a look at products. So if we scroll down now, probably is on the second side, we see here our product has been created and all the repositories are available but haven't been synced yet. To show you how to sync it manually, it's quite easy. You just click the ones you want to synchronize, you click on Sync Now, and now the synchronization is being started. So I showed you how to apply errata for servers where the packets already are available in your lifecycle itself. Sometimes there are errata where the fix is not available in the lifecycle the server lives in, but only in a newer version one. So how can we apply an erratum without having to promote the complete content view and prematurely assign packages which have not been fully tested yet? So let's go back to our CentOS server so we can see the freshly deployed server from before is online. Now we have a look at this one. We go to content. We see here now at the moment, if we click here on errata, it displays us all the errata which is available in our lifecycle. We can go to the library sync content. In this case, we see also all the errata which are only available to also available in the fresh sync lifecycle without being assigned to a content view. If you want to apply that once, we can have a look here now at content. We can have a look now at errata. Now we will have a look at all the errata which are available as a general in orcharhino. We can filter them in applicable. So installable means we can install them right away because we are in the correct lifecycle. Applicable means there is an erratum available, but it's not installable yet because it's not in the lifecycle. So let's just filter for a CentOS repository. So let's look at OS. So we will see applicable errata for CentOS, but not installable. Unfortunately, it went back again. Okay, never mind. Let's just pick. Okay, it's making fun of me now, but no problem. Now it already did. But unfortunately, we don't have the non-installable errata for this one. So let's just take this last because it was already working. So let's look at applicable but not installable. So we pick this erratum. Here's the solution. Filter again. So we checkbox it. We click on apply errata. When it tells us what servers are affected by this erratum, let's only apply it to one host. We click here. We click to next. So it says this needs to be updated. We click on apply errata to content host immediately after publishing. This means that the erratum will be applied to our servers once the task has been done. In this case, now we are performing a so-called incremental update of our content view. This means we are only pulling the packages into the content view version, which are necessary to close the erratum. This means the newer version of the package and the dependencies are required. In this case, we will not publish a version 11.0, but we will publish a version 10.1 based on 10. We click on confirm. And now we will see that first, this content view will be published in an incremental update. And then afterwards, the erratum will be applied to our host. So we see incremental update is running. So let's get back to our content view. This was a /12 FSP5. So let's have a look at our /12 SP5. And we see here the version 10.1 is being published and the environment testing has been shifted to the new one so that all test servers will obtain content views which contain the solution for this erratum. So let's get back to our deployed host and have a final overview about what is available as well. So we had our webinar CentOS 7. So as I said, we are able to apply several config management tools. I promised you to explain what parameters could be set. For that, we defined a so-called host group, which is basically a template of all parameters which are being set. So let's have a look at CentOS 7, because that's the one which we deployed. So we have here the name of our host group. We have a lifecycle environment to which our servers to be assigned, the content view which is going to be attached, the content source, which in our case Orcharhino. This means there are the repositories where the server is getting its packages from. We have the Puppet environment production. We tell what is our compute resource. In this case, is our vCenter. We have a compute profile, which basically defines our hardware. So how much memory, what storage, and how many processors we want to have it. We can override the default over here when deploying a server. Here we define our Puppet master. We can define our salt master as well if we have one. Here we can assign salt states which are to be applied on our servers. We can assign Ansible roles which are to be assigned to our servers, and here Puppet classes as well. You don't only have to use a single config management tool. You can use several at once if you like to do, or none at all if you don't want to. Here we define our network configuration. Here we have the parameters for operating system. We define the architecture, the operating system, the installation medium from it is going to be installed, the partition table, and PXE loader. And here we can define additional parameters in it for our host. There are several levels where we can define our parameters. We can do it globally, so they are valid for all the hosts which are attached to Orcharhino, but we can also attach it just to operating systems, so that only hosts of a certain operating systems do obtain these parameters, host groups, or even subnets. We have now here our location organization, which are defined up here. So this basically means if you have several departments and you don't want that one department can see and configure a service of a different department, we can assign them to different organizations so that one department only can see its own service, not the other ones. Location is a different separation of servers. For example, if you have different data centers, you can just assign them to different locations just to sort them and to have separate layers defined in Orcharhino. And here we have our activation key, which defines when a server is subscribed to Orcharhino, which repositories are going to be assigned. So let's get back here to our server. So we already saw before that you triggered updates and so on with remote execution. If we click here, we can trigger several things. We can just trigger a Puppet run to run once. We can trigger a salt run for once. We can trigger all the Ansible roles to be run. If you go here to schedule remote job, we can do more general things. For example, with commands, we can just type any command and send everything we want to our server. For example, let's just send an uptime. So we'll see it will be sent to our server. If you now look what happened here, you will see that it just displays how long the server is already running, and we see the server came online about 16 minutes ago. So let's scroll back. So we see we can also run Ansible commands or Ansible roles. We can do all the package actions you saw before or also here. For example, do package action, and now we can install, update, or remove packages. That's the same thing we saw before in the content management of our host directly. If we want to do the same job simultaneously on many servers, we don't have to do it one by one. So let's get back to our complete overview. Now we can pick several servers, possibly all the servers. Let's pick the CentOS 8, and the Debian host. We click here on select action. So we have here several actions we can do. So we wanted to do a schedule remote job. We can do that again. We go here. We run an uptime again. Demonstration issues. And now we see that this command will be run simultaneously on all the 3 servers. So if I click here, we'll see the uptime of every different server. So we can just run bulk actions for any sort of remote execution we want to apply to our servers. So last but not least, let's have now a last look to our config management tools. As I said, so we provide reports for everything that's run when it has been configured. So let's get back to our webinar backup because it has been run a bit more, so we have more reports already. So we see what we have applied here triggered a reboot, so it tells us that we installed a package which requires us to reboot the server. So now we could just go to here to schedule remote job. We go here to power, and we click on submit. We wait a second until it has been confirmed. And once it has been confirmed, in a minute from now, the server will reboot. And once the traces have been uploaded, it will realize it's been rebooted and there is no reboot or restart required. If I now have a look at the reports here, we can see all the reports which have been sent to orcharhino. So we see in our case that we ran all the 3 different tools. So we see here all our Puppet reports. So we see here in the first Puppet run was interrupted by the reboot. So the second Puppet run completed the configuration. So we have 6 changes applied, which can be seen here. Here we have our Ansible run, which has been automatically triggered about 5 minutes after the server came online. And here we have our salt report, which applied the salt state once and is going to be repeated about every hour. So basically, I'm pretty much at the end of our demonstration. So in case you have any questions, don't bother, just type them in the chat. Otherwise, thank you for participating. And I will just wait about a minute to see if there are questions arising. And afterwards, I would just wish you a good afternoon. So apparently there are no urgent questions. So again, thank you for joining and participating in our webinar, and have a nice day. Thank you and bye-bye.